Hey guys, check out Italian Wine Unplugged 2.0, brought to you by Mama Jumbo Shrimp, a fully updated second edition, reviewed and revised by an expert panel of certified Italian wine ambassadors from across the globe. The book also includes an edition by Professore Attilio Scienza, Italy's leading vine geneticist. To pick up a copy today, just head to Amazon.com or visit us at mamajumboshrimp.com.
Welcome to Masterclass U.S. Market with me, Juliana Colangelo. This show has been designed to demystify the U.S. market for Italian wineries through interviews with experts in sales and distribution, social media, communications, and so much more. We will quiz each of our esteemed guests at the end of each episode to solidify the lessons that we've learned. So sharpen your pencils, get out your notebooks, and join us each week to learn more about the U.S. market. Hello, welcome to Masterclass U.S. Wine Market. Today I'm thrilled to welcome Gary Fisch to the Italian Wine Podcast. Gary is the president and CEO of Gary's Wine and Marketplace. Gary started as a small wine shop in Madison, New Jersey in 1987 and has grown to be one of the largest fine wine businesses in the New York metropolitan area, with 4 stores in northern New Jersey and 1 store in Napa, California. Gary's has also expanded to include a successful e-commerce site. Gary's passion for customer service, wine, and retail is palpable and can be felt walking through every one of his stores. And I've experienced that personally, having worked with Gary throughout the years. Welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. So we're going to dive into a discussion today about off-premise and Italian wine. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about your story and your journey and how you got into the wine industry.
Well, I mean, that could be the entire show. But, I fell in love with wine in 1979, 1980, just as I graduated college. And I started focusing, I was a liquor salesman, I started focusing really on selling wine. And it was first domestic, California predominantly. And then it became Italian and then French after that. So I've been fond of Italian wines for a very long time.
And then how did you come to open Gary's?
As a liquor salesman, I was calling on retail stores around northern New Jersey. And one of my accounts wanted to sell one of his stores. And it was in a great wine market. And he thought that based upon my wine knowledge, I would be a good candidate to buy the store. And after some challenging discussions about economics and me not having any money, we figured out a way for us to buy the store, and that was in 1987.
Wow.
So I was 28 years old.
Amazing.
29.
And I imagine northern New Jersey, where I'm also from, you had a lot of Italian wine clients and selling a lot of Italian wine in that part of the state.
Well, it's funny because at that point, it was more Italian restaurants and pizza places than fine Italian wine.
Right.
But definitely firsthand Italian, as you know, northern New Jersey and parts of New York is Italy first, right? It's Italian wine, Italian food.
Yep, absolutely. So in today's episode, Gary, we're going to talk about trends in the off-premise in Italian wine today. So much has changed in the last few years since the pandemic. So we really want to dive into some of those shifts. Our 3 key takeaways for today's masterclass are going to be, number 1, what varieties and styles of Italian wine are trending currently in the off-premise? Number 2, what are off-premise buyers, including your team at Gary's, looking for in the Italian wine category? And number 3, what are some trends in brick and mortar, but also in e-commerce, which we know Gary's has a huge business in. So that's what we're going to focus on for today's masterclass. So, just to start, you've been in this business for many years, like you just detailed. You've seen lots of trends. Talk us through some of the key trends in Italian wine that you've experienced during your time, in retail and starting Gary's.
Sure. When we first started, it was all about Bolla. It was Bolla Suave, Valpolicella, and Bartolino. And it was Martini Rossi Asti. And Riuniti on ice is nice. So it was not a very sophisticated program, but it was very active. And then all of a sudden, the word Santa Margherita Pinot Grigio came on scene.
Around what year was that?
I want to say about 84, 85, I started seeing it. But definitely by the early 90s, Bolla Suave was done in our stores. We were selling very little. Mm-hmm. And it converted to Santa Margherita Pinot Grigio, and which then became an entire group of Pinot Grigios. Cavit became the dominant force in the Magnum bottle. But Santa Margherita,
I remember drinking that at my grandma's.
yeah, it's funny because when I was, just getting into the business, it was all about Suave, right? It was and it was really Bola. And if you wanted bubbles, it was Asti Spumante. It was that sweeter.
Right.
And if you wanted something other, it was the Riuniti, so it's that fruity Lambrusco.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like it was going slowly, but it really rapidly changed when, Ruffino started becoming, with Chianti, and it went from straw Chianti to more sophisticated Chianti Classicos.
Right. Was that around the time of The Sopranos? I remember that bottle is on a lot of tables in that show.
It's a good point. It probably was. I don't remember, but it was definitely the late 80s where you saw this shift from the Soprano straw Chianti to higher quality Chianti, to the red and white checkered tablecloths. Remember those?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the hot pepper. The hot pepper in the shaker.
Right. Mm-hmm.
To the servers with white aprons and white tablecloths and fresh grinding Parmesan in front of you. And with that shift to higher end Italian from the pizza joints, became the shift to higher end Italian wines.
And that makes so much sense, right? With the connection between, Italian food and wine, that the wines would start premiumizing at the same time that the cuisine did.
Absolutely. And also travel. I remember my friends and neighbors and stuff started going to Italy as one of their primary vacations.
Yeah.
And when you go to Italy, you don't come back wanting just to eat pizza. You come back wanting to drink better wine.
Yeah. Definitely.
And the whole travel thing, and that goes for all of the world. Whenever people start traveling to a region, we see significantly shifts in the quality of wine and also the desire for people to buy those wines.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. And I think we've only seen that with Italy grow. So how about more recently, some of the trends that you've seen in Italian wine?
So it went from, the Chianti and Pinot Grigio to Super Tuscan, right? Sassicaia, Ornellaia, Tignello. And Chianti you can get for $7 to $25. Tignello, when it came out, was probably $30. Now is $125.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't keep it on the shelf.
Wow.
And the quality of that category of Super Tuscan exploded. And we continue to see it, but we're now, and I think it's coming again with shifting in travel. Early on, people were going predominantly to Tuscany, and I think part of it is its proximity to Rome.
Yeah.
Right? You would do a few days in Rome, and then you'd go up to Tuscany. Now we're seeing more and more people going to Sicily and Sardinia and Puglia. And now we're seeing wines from those areas become more and more requested. People are asking for wines from volcanic soil.
Right.
Right. And whites that may be a little bit more fragrant and have more structure and maybe texture than your typical Pinot Grigio.
I think that also just trends with consumer preferences in terms of styles of wine, lighter styles of wine as well. I mean, you talked about what was trending in the 80s and 90s, some of these bigger wines, but also sweet wines. And now we've seen just consumer preferences shift towards a lighter style of wine overall, lower ABV too. So some of those regions you mentioned, especially in the whites, might trend towards that.
Oh, absolutely. Especially the whites, where you're getting other grape varietals and you're getting, and I call them fragrant. You're getting wines that have beautiful fragrance and aromatics. And they may have or appear to have some fruit to them, but they're not fruity sweet wines. They're just wines that have lush flavors and go great with seafood and lighter salad dishes. And again, that's, people are not having, except for my friends, Parmesan, field Parmesan as much anymore.
Right, exactly.
And, and so the food changes and our wine taste preferences also change.
Yeah, and one of our last episodes, we talked to Dan Petrosky, who makes Masterclass, and he talks about making a white wine that embodies the Mediterranean, specifically Italian white wine lifestyle. So it's no surprise to me to hear from you that that's also trending, in your stores around Italian white wines. So
Absolutely. And he's a good customer in our St. Helena store. And we love what he's doing with white varietals.
Yeah, those wines are fantastic. Are you noticing any trends generationally in the store? What younger consumers versus older consumers are gravitating towards?
Absolutely. Well, you think about the younger consumer, and I'll start off with sparkling, right? So I said it was Asti Spumante early on,
Right.
and now it's all about Prosecco, right? So you're getting a little bit lighter, crisper, and drier. And the white wines, it used to be Santa Margherita. The under 35 group, I don't think any of them ever order Santa Margherita.
Yeah.
Right. That's just not what they're not drinking that. They are looking for Luganos, or they're looking for that lighter, more fragrant white wine. And again, it's the same thing. It's going to what they're eating. So definitely the younger generation is less name oriented.
Right.
Right. They're not, where my generation might have grown up on Ruffino and Santa Margherita. They're just looking for wines of an area.
Right.
And then playing around in that area till maybe they get bored and they try a different area, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. They're not as brand loyal. I know we have a family member who won't drink anything but Santa Margherita and literally travels around with the bottle of it in her bag. So definitely experienced that in my own family. But yeah, I agree with you. And I've seen the same trend among my friends that they're more interested in places and regions as opposed to specific brands. So it offers a lot more opportunity, right, out there for new players.
Absolutely. And it's also experiential, right? So it's about an experience. It's not just drinking. It's about drinking a bottle of wine that reminds you of a vacation or reminds you of a great meal that you had someplace. And I think that's what we're seeing more of. And as people get out and travel again post-COVID and they're experiencing more things, I think we're going to see that continue, which is great for us because, quite honestly, when you're dealing with big name brands, we have to be competitively priced. So our margins are really condensed on,
of course,
Santa Margherita and La Marca Prosecco and Ruffino Chianti. But we have unlimited opportunity with the varietals that don't have name recognition and more have experience recognition. So I'm finding that's great for everybody, right? It's great for wineries because now they're not really competing against price. They're competing against somebody that's also visited Sardinia and looking for Sardinian wines, which I think is great for everybody.
Italian Wine Podcast, part of the Mama Jumbo Shrimp family.
Yeah, and speaking of, experiential and travel at Gary's, beyond Italian wine, you have a super global approach to your selection. I know here in Napa and California, we were excited when you opened your store in 2019 because it was an opportunity to buy more global wines. And you and your team, travel the world sourcing different wines, visiting vineyards and meeting with winemakers. So what's most exciting to you and your team right now in the Italian wine category?
Well, it's funny, and we're a couple days too early, but, I have Cesare Martini as my Italian buyer, and he just got back from 5 weeks in Italy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. I want to be him when I grow up.
Lucky guy, yeah.
Because been Italy, and he went before there, and he stayed a little bit after. But he is really, really excited about the quality of wines he was seeing. He still believes very heavily, very strongly in Piedmont and in Tuscany. But he said, Gary, I got to tell you, what's coming out of Sicily now.
Yeah.
And he was more focused on Sicily as like his next area in quality and in price point, right? Because as we've seen with the Super Tuscans and Tuscans in general, Brunellos are now trending towards $50 to $70 for really good Brunellos. You can get some a little less expensive. But from Sicily or any southern Italian area, you can get great value.
Absolutely.
In between $15 and $25.
Yeah. So seeing a lot of excitement with the southern regions, which makes me happy as a person of Southern Italian heritage. That's exciting. A lot of my family's from Calabria, so I know that region is still a little under the radar, but I've had some great Calabrian wines. I think, it's just a matter of time. They'll get there too. They're not quite Sicily yet, but there's always room to explore.
But I think what happens is as Sicily becomes more powerful and more recognized, the price points will go up.
Absolutely. We've already seen that with Etna, right? Those price points have gone up quite a bit. Yeah.
Exactly.
Beautiful wines.
And I love those wines.
Yeah. So then that'll open up opportunity more in that, let's say, $10 to $20 range for some other regions, perhaps like a Calabria, Molise, but other lesser known regions to make an entrance.
Right. And I think what happens is people have a budget, and it's not necessarily age driven, but if categories or areas start to move above your budget, you look for other areas.
Right. You look for alternatives.
And that's where I think Italy is really well positioned because, from north to south, you have an enormous number of grape varietals. You have completely different climatic areas. The soils, obviously, you have from sandy soils to volcanic soils. And so we have unlimited opportunity, totally different tastes.
Yeah.
And I think for the consumers, that gives them almost one-stop shop for experiencing different wines. You can get all of them from Italy.
Exactly. Yeah. And look for alternatives to things you might have been buying in California as prices get higher within, the Italian wine category too.
Absolutely. Obviously I'm a huge fan of Napa Valley and I put my money where my mouth is. But in our Napa Valley store, we have a great number of imported wines. And here, ironically, we're very heavily into Tuscany and Piedmont.
Interesting.
And I'm not sure if that's because they score very well.
Could be. Mm-hmm.
And that's what winemakers are looking for to compare to their wines, or just what our wine buyers here have found.
That's interesting. What's distributed more widely in the state potentially. But I think also, we saw the East Coast is the first market for Italian wine, and then things will trend towards the West. So maybe we'll start seeing more of that Southern Italy and Sicily come into the Napa store in the coming years and follow the East Coast.
Oh, absolutely. And the East Coast is clearly a couple of years ahead. But in our stores, because of, we're northern New Jersey, so the Italian population is still very strong.
Absolutely.
But you're right. The next generation Italian consumer is not drinking just what their mother drank or what their grandparents
drank. Absolutely.
Which is great.
So, in addition to the brick and mortar stores you have in New Jersey and Napa, you also have a great e-commerce business and even a delivery service, which is fantastic. So talk to us a little bit about the differences you're seeing between e-commerce and brick and mortar. Are you seeing similar trends in e-commerce, or are you noticing anything different in the Italian wine category?
It's interesting. And I took a deep dive into this because I had, before we spoke, I really didn't have a grasp on what was selling online and delivery. And ironically, the delivery business in New Jersey, which is very strong since COVID, is still name brand.
Okay.
It's much more, and maybe that's because it's an older clientele that really got into the habit of not going out and just, clicking on our mobile app and saying, I bought Santa Margherita last week. Give me some Santa Margherita. Give me some Cabot, Ruffino. Mm-hmm. So we're still selling more name brands online.
Yeah. Also, that makes sense because online, you don't have somebody in the store introducing you to something new. So you might go for what you already know. And, you have such a great staff that is there to educate the customer.
That's exactly. And that happened across everything during the pandemic, where when people weren't coming in, everybody went towards name brand.
Right.
And now in store, they're much more experimental again. Delivery, they're clearly just going to name brand. Online is very different. It's still heavily weighted towards Tuscan.
Okay.
But that's because if you think about it, Brunello's that score very well, sell very well on email. Therefore, that's our online business. So that becomes our first line of defenses what people are buying via our emails. And our emails are heavily to Tuscan and then Piedmont second. So that's what you're going to see is our base of business. But whenever we run something from Sicily in particular, it does very well. It's just we don't get as many opportunities there because there are less wineries.
Right. And maybe smaller production, not the volume that
Exactly.
you might need.
And they also need more of a story. And a story is easier to tell in person when they're in the store or when we do an in-store tasting, as opposed to telling them via text online.
Yeah, that makes sense. That something like a score that's easier to recognize for a consumer or easier to translate in an email or over text would sell the wines in the e-com and digital space. So that makes a lot of sense. Just now it's time for our rapid fire quiz. So we'll review some of the key takeaways that you've shared with our listeners today to hammer home some of our learnings from today's episode. So Gary, if you can try your best to answer each question in about a sentence or less, that's what we're looking for. So,
okay.
Question number 1, what varieties and styles of Italian wine are trending today in the off-premise, in your experience?
Sicilian reds, big, rich wines that are not too tannic and easy to drink. And really, even though we didn't talk about it, northern whites, Friuli in particular.
Oh, some of my favorite wines. Beautiful. Question number 2, what are off-premise buyers and your team in particular at Gary's looking for in the Italian wine category right now?
Scouting out the best opportunities that they can find. There's so many options that they're looking for what's great quality at the right price.
Fantastic. Okay, and finally, question number 3, what are some general trends and differences you're seeing in sales of Italian wine in brick and mortar versus retail and delivery and e-retail?
Well, in the brick and mortar, we're seeing, as we said, we're seeing great deal of experimentation. Mm-hmm. Listening to our wine team, learning about it, tasting. People love when they come in our stores to taste. E-commerce is about name brands. It's about, high-end Brunellos with a big score. It's about a great deal on a Prosecco. So,
Yeah, no, I think that summed it up well. We're seeing experimentation in the brick and mortar, and we're seeing more wines that are selling off scores or brand recognition in the e-commerce and delivery space. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Well, Gary, thank you so much for joining us today on the Italian Wine Podcast. How can our listeners connect with you or reach you at Gary's?
Gary'sWine.com.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Gary, for being here today. Really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you so much for having me brush up on my Italian.
Anytime. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you for joining me today. Stay tuned each week for new episodes of Masterclass US Wine Market with me, Juliana Colangelo. And remember, if you enjoyed today's show, hit the like and follow buttons wherever you get your podcasts.